All right, we are on. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call the July 22nd, 2020 meeting of the Diversion Authority Finance Committee to order. Can we take a roll call, please?
Mayor Dardis.
Here.
Dr. Mahoney. Mr. Peterson. Mr. Hendrickson.
Here.
Mr. Jacobson.
Here.
Mr. Costin. Ms. Johnson. Mr. Montplaisir.
Here.
Mr. Redlinger.
Here.
Mr. Steen.
Here.
Mr. Gehrig. Ms. McCall.
Here.
The quorum is present.
Thank you very much. With that, first item on the agenda will be approval of the agenda. Any changes to the agenda or motion to approve?
So moved.
This is Chuck, so moved.
Motion and a second.
Second. Yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The next item on the agenda is the election of the new chair, Tony Grinberg, with his leaving the Fargo City Commission, can no longer be on the committee, and he was replaced with Mayor Dardis from West Fargo. And so with that, I would like to nominate Bernie Dardis as our next Finance Committee Chair.
I'll second. This is Chuck.
Motion is second. Any discussion on the motion? Any further nominations? Hearing none, I would propose to cast a unanimous ballot. All those in favor say aye.
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 Perfect. Next item would be the election of the vice chair.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that Rick Steen be the vice chairman of the Finance Committee.
It's a motion to approve or to nominate Rick Steen as the vice chair as the nominating committee. Is there a second?
Dan Jacobson, second.
Is there a second?
Dan Jacobson, second.
Okay, Dan, thank you. Any additional nominations? Nominations closed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. With that, Mr. Dardis, would you like to take over, or would you like me to continue?
We'll let you continue, please,
All right.
Mr. Steen.
Next item on the agenda then, approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. You've all had a chance to look at the minutes of the meeting. Any discussion or motion?
McCall, motion to approve.
Thank you, Laura, or Carla, and Mike Montplaisir seconded that. Any discussion? And I'm going to ask from the rest of the motions, anybody opposed versus anybody all in favor at this point. Anybody opposed to the motion to approve the minutes? Minutes have been approved. Moving on to number 4, approval of the bills. Mr. Montplaisir.
The bills are listed. I see the page isn't numbered, but oh, maybe it is. They total $1,176,688.57. The biggest item is from the Diversion Authority, or from the Cass Joint Water Resource District, has to do with property buyouts and legal fees and stuff. And then Dorsey Whitney, Onstead Twitchell, and then Cass County for expenses of the executive director.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve or to approve?
I would so move.
Mike Montplaisir has moved to approve the bills as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Dardis seconded. Any questions on the motion or on the bills? Hearing none, any opposition to approving the bills? Hearing none, motion has passed. Moving on to financial report, and I'm assuming, Mr. Montplaisir, you'll be doing the financial report.
Sure. If you turn to the page with the 2 yellow lines on it, so far this year we've taken in $18,836,000, and we have spent $28,622, $28,622, $18,836. The statement of net position, we have assets of about $89 million. Most of that is in cash. A little bit of that is receivable from the State Water Commission. And then we have some payables of $1,506,000 for a net position of $87,922,108. And that has remained pretty constant over the last year or so.
Anything else?
Sure, the next page is the budget report. We have an approved budget of 138, I believe this is in millions, yes. 138,559,000. Have taken into date this fiscal year $40,197,000. And we have an expenditure budget also of $138,559,000. And we've spent $37,310,000. We have a remaining budget balance of a negative $40,407,000, and that's because of outstanding encumbrances. Whenever we approve a work order, we encumber that amount. So that probably won't all be spent this year, but that's what our balance is today.
Okay. Any further?
That's it.
Okay. Looking for a motion to either, any questions for Mike, I should say, before we turn it over to Joel. Probably just a motion to receive and file the finance report.
So moved.
I got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those opposed to approving the motion signify by saying aye. Hearing none, motion passes. Moving on to number 6, Executive Director Financial Report. Joel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Commission or Committee Member Montplaisir had mentioned, we're at total expenditures to date of $563 million. I show this slide today so that you can see where the dollars have been spent year to date. So the right-hand column is the cost to date for the Tier 1 areas of work on the diversion project. So as you can see on this page, the majority of our funds to date have been spent this year on lands and impacted property mitigation. Obviously our P3 procurement continues, and so we have expenditures there. And engineering, legal, and financial, which encompasses the design of project work, our litigation and legal obligations, and then the financial modeling is the other big area of expenditures. This is the Tier 2 breakout, and so you can see the specific projects where we're expending funds. You can see the management, legal, financial, procurement is a large expenditure, obviously, for our preliminary planning purposes. And then I've broken out the different projects there as well in the work package with the number and the expenditure amounts. So if there's any questions on any of those specific projects or expenditures, I can answer those. You know, I would note, let's see if we can go to previous, let's see, it's down here. I would note that we're on budget with everything we're expected to expend this year. I don't see any significant areas of concern. Our legal bills are running a little high, and that's due to the contested case hearing and other litigation that has occurred. So we continue to monitor that, and I'll make the committee aware if there's any additional concern in the next month or two here. But so far we're still running under budget, so we'll kind of see how some of those things develop. But board members will get an update on the current status of the litigation after the board meeting during the executive session, if they so choose to call one. So, Any questions on the overall expenditures year to date? All right. And Mr. Chair,
Joel,
I would like
before
to
you move
just-
into that, contracting actions, I did have a couple of questions, but they weren't on expenditures. If I
Yes.
may, and you may have this on the agenda, I did not see it. Any quick update, I see John's not here, but update on the WIFIA loan, where we're at with that? Any update information?
Yeah, we continue to work towards closing the WIFIA loan. We anticipate that to happen this fall, like maybe this fall, early winter time period is what we're hearing from the EPA. So there's a significant amount of work going into the due diligence right now. I'm providing information to the EPA to continue to move towards that loan closing. So everything appears to be going well. We did get our indicative ratings, and those came in above what we were required to have for EPA requirements. So that was encouraging.
Recall what they were?
I don't want to give the wrong number, but I'll get that to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
I don't know if Martin Nicholson remembers. It was A2. A2 was the rating. Okay. So that was encouraging. Definitely a sign of support there as we move towards close. A couple other things, if I may, Mr. Chair, that I just want to make the committee aware of. There's obvious concern with the Resources Trust Fund with the state of North Dakota right now. And as the committee is aware, the revenue for the Resources Trust Fund comes from oil tax revenue. And that money is used to pay for water projects in North Dakota. That is the intended account where the state contributions for the Diversion Authority will come from. And so that presents some concern for the Diversion Authority as we watch the reduced revenues come in at a much less expected rate. So there has been a lot of discussion with the legislature and many of their subcommittees, Water Topics Overview Committee and the State Water Commission, on how the state is intending to meet their obligations for the 2019 obligations that the state has for water projects. They have requested for all major water projects to review the cash from the 2019 session that could be utilized and unencumber any dollars that are not anticipated to be utilized in the near future to balance the budget. We've identified approximately $22 million worth of expenditures that would be outside of the next 2 years that we don't necessarily need the cash at the State Water Commission for immediately. Ultimately, of course, we will need what we've asked for from the state. And so there is the possibility to unobligate those $22 million with the state, and which would allow them to balance their budget through the Resources Trust Fund with all of their additional obligations. It does appear that all other water projects in the state of North Dakota are unencumbering some of the money that they have, or some of the intent money that they have that isn't coming in. So it really is not out of line for us to consider this, but right now there isn't any formal proposal to take action on, but I wanted to make the committee aware of the discussions that are happening at the state level. So,
Good. Thanks, Joel.
any questions on that? Okay. Okay, Mr. Chair, we could move into contracting actions?
Please do.
Okay.
And Joel, do you want to take these, the first two contracting actions, just vote, approve those together? Does that would work for you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I actually have 3 contracting actions for the committee to consider today. The first 2 are task order amendments for HMG. The first one is for services during construction, task order 17, amendment 9. That is for in-town projects within the city of Fargo. That is contained within the program budget. And so it is an amendment for additional construction services support for the in-town levy projects. The second task order is Task Order 21, Amendment 8, and that is services for HMG during the P3, basically providing technical support as the developers propose innovative technical concepts for their bids. We have a need for HMG to look at that from a technical nature and do analysis to ensure that what's being proposed is something that is acceptable to the Diversion Authority and acceptable to the state agencies that have regulatory control over the diversion project. So that is also included in the program budget, and nothing outside of the program budget that we're considering here. So
let's take, if there's any questions on those first two. Any questions for Joel on those first two contract actions? If not, is there a motion to approve those first two?
On pleasure, move to approve.
This is Redlinger, second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? All those opposed to the motion signify by saying aye. Hearing no opposed, motion passes. Next item.
thank you, Mr. Chair. The third item here for committee consideration is the WP 43G project. That's a wetland mitigation project that was developed within the city of Oxbow. It's basically taking a portion of the old Oxbow golf course and turning it back into natural wetland and natural space. That provides mitigation for our construction practices related to the OHB levee and the southern embankment, and it is a project we'll have to do. However, upon review of the three bids that we received, all three are significantly over budget, and so we are currently working to understand reasons why. I don't have a bullet point listing for the committee to consider, but regardless, the amount over would not be considered in our program budget, and we're recommending rejection of all bids.
Joel, I looked at these on the hard copy. I do not have the hard copy in front of us. Some others do not have the hard copy in front of them. Could you at least review the three bids and what the estimate was?
Certainly. Give me 1 second. So the opinion of probable cost developed by the engineer was 1.4 million. We received three bids, with the lowest bid being $2,097,000 and the high bid being 3.9 million. So an obvious discrepancy and a huge range between the bids. So there's something going on here that either the contractor didn't understand some intent in the contracting documents. There could be market conditions at play here. So things we're looking into, and but regardless, you know, even the low bid would be 600,000 over budget, and that is not contained within our program budget without the use of contingency, and we don't feel it appropriate to recommend approval at this time. So.
Any questions for Joel on that item? And I'm assuming because we requested bids, you need a motion to reject the bids as indicated.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Is there a motion to reject the bids?
Jacobson, motion to reject all bids.
I have a
McCall,
motion
second.
and a second. Thank you very much. Any discussion on the motion? Anybody opposed to the motion signify by saying aye. Hearing no opposition, motion passed. Next.
All right, committee, I have only one executive director approved contracting action, and that was for task order 26, amendment number 5 for HMG in the amount of $29,800. This was work that we requested from HMG in relation to the Cheyenne River or Cheyenne Diversion mitigation and how that's being incorporated into the diversion authority. So this was for additional modeling support from HMG.
Okay.
I have a number of Cass County joint approved contracting actions for your information as well. All of these are related to property acquisition services. I won't take these one at a time, but they are there for your review, and I can certainly take any questions related to any of them.
Any questions for Joel on the Joint Water Resource District approved contract actions? All right, moving on.
All right, and we did not have any MCC JPA contracting actions this month. And that concludes the contracting actions, Mr. Chair.
Any other business from you, Joel, at all?
No, that should do it.
Any other business from any of the committee members? I have one item. I talked to Kent Costin yesterday or Monday, and he indicated that the audit was completed for the diversion authority, and we talked about presenting that, and he suggested that we have the auditor come and make a presentation to the finance committee of the audit report at the next meeting. And so we'll make sure we put that on the agenda. That's all I have on that. Any other business?
Mr. Chair, there's one item listed under other business that was a last minute addition, I believe by Mr. Shockley, who wasn't here.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Did not have that on my agenda.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. Good afternoon. John is stuck on a one-on-one call. So he sent me to talk about this resolution. It discusses a procedure for Cass County Joint to turn over funds from the sale of property and leasing property to the Diversion Authority. John said it's largely housekeeping to make sure that we're following accounting practices, and there's a paper trail to be able to follow the funds from Cass County Joint to the Diversion Authority.
Okay. And I understand that's going to be presented at the board tomorrow as well?
I believe so.
Did we get copies of that at all for Finance Committee?
I think it was attached with the agenda.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe so.
171 pages.
Oh, no, that's the 171 page one. I got it.
Yeah.
You didn't review that, Mr. Chair?
Do we have to take any action on that station at all? Thoughts?
I don't know. Do you think?
Okay, I'd say let's present it to the board tomorrow then. I'm not sure what I would do with that. What's that?
It does have action.
What does?
It does.
I must have an outdated.
I have an outdated one too then.
You do. So this was just added, I think, in the last day. End of day yesterday. The way, and I haven't had a chance to review it as well. However, it is largely a housekeeping item, as far as tracking the
Okay, since some other people have that, maybe they'd like to make a motion on that, and I haven't seen it, so.
Also moved on, pleasure.
And what are we actually approving? Is there a title to this?
Resolution for lease funds.
All right, got it. Thank you. We have a motion to approve the resolution establishing the procedures and protocols for accepting funds derived from land sales and rent from the Cass County Joint Water Resource District of the Metro Flood Diversion Authority.
Moved.
There's a motion, and what's there a second?
Darty seconds.
I understand we have a motion and a second. Any questions for that resolution? Hearing none, all those opposed to the motion signify by saying aye. Hearing none, motion passed. Next meeting, August 26, 2020. Oh, Mr. Dartis.
I'd like to thank everyone for the opportunity to serve with you on the Finance Committee with the election today. I'd also like to thank Commissioner Steen for running the meeting today. I've attended plenty of Diversion Authority meetings, but never a Finance Committee meeting. So Mr. Steen has set the bar very high as to how we'll conduct our meetings in the future. So with that, I want to thank you again, Rick, for your willingness to help run this first meeting. Look forward to working with all of you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dartis. I have one question. So when we had all these virtual meetings only, we had all the information on the computer. what's the plan going forward when we have in-person meetings as far as copies? It was a little awkward here not having copies in front of me, even though I read the stuff in your office the other, today actually. But in the past, we've had copies provided to the attendees. So thoughts on that?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Steen. So forgive us just a little bit as we are in this time of transition. We will provide copies at the future meetings. So
thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Any other business? Motion to adjourn? We are adjourned. Thank you.